When you think of the word chud, what do you think of? Everyone will have a slightly different answer to that. However, one thing that's consistent about every answer is that it's probably not a far cry from Chris Griffin. And I know that sounds like a joke, but it's not meant to be. I'm dead serious. What else is there to his character? I'll answer it for you. Nothing. I want to talk today about Chris Griffin, back in season 1 and 2, and I want to specifically focus on why out of all the characters in the show, Chris is the one that has no character left, because there is a genuine reason for this. So let's go back in time to when Chris Griffin was first introduced. He was very emotional, socially awkward, he was naive and easy to take advantage of, but he was also very wholesome, a good brother and son, and very artistic. If we take a look at a scene right back to the very beginning, we get the opportunity to see Chris in high school, and it tells us a lot about his character.
I think I'm coming down with something.
Chris, relax. The freshman hunt doesn't really exist. It's just a myth to scare freshmen.
Really? Oh boy, that's a relief.
Now have a good day at school, sweetie. Freshman!
When watching that, what do we see? We see someone easy to take advantage of, someone innocent, emotional, awkward, which maybe aren't the most desirable traits for someone to have, but they're very human ones. People target Chris at this point, not because he's a sex pest or because he's gross. They target him because he's an easy target. How sensitive he is, even in a scene that's not particularly happy, still shines through, and it brings us to the core of Chris's character. It helps establish those traits. Even though this is played for jokes, there's still a character behind the joke, and that's what's significant about Chris at this point. There were lots of jokes at his expense, as there were for all the other characters of the show. The difference was that they were still characters, including Chris. For those that don't remember, Chris was very artistic. He loved to draw. In season 1, episode 6, we get our first glimpse of this, when he gets kicked out of the Scouts because he would rather draw than engage in the activities. This is a storyline specifically included to introduce Chris's artistic trait. There is something really special about Chris's artistic abilities being included in the show. It's not something that's easily joked about, which is why it's discarded in the later seasons. But it's so important to focus on the fact that it actually was a component of the show at one point, that they went out of their way to include. Chris was meant to be a fully fleshed out character in the beginning. He was meant to be an independent Griffin family member, just like the rest of them are. The same way the show can improve certain characters like Stewie, it can also deteriorate certain characters like Peter. But with Chris, he was just completely forgotten. Let's look at the progression of some of the other Family Guy characters for reference. Lois used to be a responsible parent, and they pushed her so far in the opposite direction that she became a murderer and also a serial child abuser.
Oh my god, that's the last pill. Oh, damn it, my hand's too big, it won't fit. Oh, Stewie, you know how you missed your last swim lesson? Yeah, we could do a little makeup class, huh?
So they turned something that wasn't good for jokes, but was good for balance, into something that is good for jokes and also for carrying storylines, which I know has pushed her to a point that a lot of people just do not like her as a character anymore. They find her insufferable and obnoxious and very self-righteous, which she is, but they intended to push her in that direction. Family Guy has moved from a show that was a surrealist show with some realistic characters and realistic storylines to a show that is completely surrealist. There's nothing really realistic about it at all anymore. And that's okay if you're riding that bandwagon. For me personally, it doesn't really bother me that much. I quite like surrealist pieces of comedy, especially if they're cartoons. There's a lot you can do when you can just draw characters. However, I do wish they would reconnect them with their earlier traits. That's where I think a good balance would be. But they do none of it for Chris. Chris develops these horrible traits of nastiness and incestuous tendencies that he never had before. Chris?
Meg?
Oh my god!
You know what? I don't care. I hooked up with a chick tonight, and I am pretty darn proud of myself.
You can't just push him in a direction that had nothing to do with his original character. Lois was driven insane by Peter, driven insane by her life, and then that's why she becomes the person she is now. You may not like it, but it makes sense with the writing of the show. If the show gets more insane, that quality of Lois gets more insane. Chris didn't develop, he just snapped. Well, let's take Stewie, arguably my favourite character in the show. He originally was a one-note character with a reoccurring joke of wanting world domination and being an evil baby genius. However, as the show continued, this wasn't going to cut it for 10 seasons, let alone 20. So they added other components to his character, and those developed over time. Whether people like those parts of him is not relevant to the point that I'm making, which is that they at least tried to develop Stewie so that they could do more with his character, same as they did with Lois. Even if we don't like where it's ended up, even if it's gone way too far, at least they did something. There was some sort of logical development there. there. Stewie being a genius, but also socially stunted, leading him to where he is now. It makes sense. You may not like it, but it's understandable. But again, Chris just didn't seem to make the cut. And there's no point in celebrating Family Guy for writing characters. That's kind of what you need to do when you have a show. This video is not about congratulating Family Guy on how they once had good characters. This video is about how failing to adapt Chris to the modern show has made him completely replaceable and irrelevant. They just see a big blue blob with a hat and use him for jokes that they can't assign to any other characters. Now, why would they do this? Why would they go to the trouble of creating a character just to completely abandon him, even though he was once a main character? Well, it's like I said before on this channel, Family Guy was once a passion project. They wanted to be an edgy show and spent a good amount of screen time being both edgy and a show. However, as we all know, Family Guy has sort of amounted to corporate slop, and they now spend a significant amount of time on air just wasting time. However, they have had some extreme highs, and I consider personally some of the best parts of Family Guy and some of the highest rated episodes to be when they tap into the roots of the characters and emphasize their humanity rather than playing into the surrealist component of Family Guy alone. And I believe a lot of Family Guy fans agree with that. If you're a Family Guy fan, please let me know how you feel about the Road 2 episodes, for example. They're quite often revered as one of the best parts of Family Guy. An episode having a Road 2 in the title is usually a mark of quality in the Family Guy universe. And that's because Stewie and Brian have a level of humanity in their relationship built in. They bounce off of each other, which is where the jokes come from, and therefore they don't need to rely on cutaways. But the emotional depth is always there in their relationship. Even if it's not being directly addressed, you can see the bond. And this is something that was built over time. Originally, Stewie and Brian didn't have a relationship at all. They didn't like each other. But through years of consistent relationship building and adventurous storylines where the writers took risks that paid off, built them up. Chris Griffin gets none of this. He doesn't get any close relationships with the other characters, he doesn't get any funny reoccurring jokes, he doesn't get any special episodes, doesn't get any clever writing. Even the times they do dedicate to storylines that involve Chris, he is completely replaceable in them. There's usually two types of episodes that he's in. The first one are the more shallow episodes where they focus more on comedy than building up the relationships and building up the characters. And these work too if they're done correctly, but Chris is completely replaceable in them. You could add basically any other character in his place and the show would run the same. Basically the same jokes, the same lines. He adds nothing unique to the story because there's nothing unique about his character. There's maybe one or two aspects of him that could be distinct for Chris specifically, but because of the nature of Family Guy, if they were shared with Meg or Peter or Lois, we would barely notice because that's the way the show is written. The second type of episode are the ones that try to build up his relationships. For example, the relationship that he has with Meg, which is just completely inconsistent. One day they're wholesome siblings looking out for each other, and the next day they're in a perverted incest relationship.
No, Meg. I got hurt because I didn't belong out there. But you do. I watched you skate. You found your calling, and I believe in you. Now,
Chris, our bath is ready.
Where is the foundation of this? What is this rooted in? I understand the Family Guy is a cartoon, but there's no point in condescending to the show. They should be able to write characters like they once were able to. So to just say, oh, it's only a show, it's just a joke, fair enough. But a show that can't write a main character is ridiculous. One of his relationship, I think, that has a more sophisticated motivation behind the storylines belongs to Chris and Peter. In Chris and Peter episodes, it's typically about Chris feeling like Peter neglects him and Peter trying to use him for something, which could be a very compelling storyline. Like Stewie and Brian, they could use this to build a better relationship over time between these characters, but they don't. It's an unfulfilling storyline where nothing ever gets resolved. In one episode, Peter tries to marry Chris for inheritance money that Carter was leaving to him specifically. And by the end of the episode, Peter basically just realizes that he shouldn't marry his son for insurance money.
Well, let's all go home, you guys. I think we've had enough excitement for one day.
Yeah, and I guess I learned it's wrong to take your son to Vermont under false pretenses to try to marry him for his inheritance.
You should have known that.
That episode was meant to be all about Peter and Chris's relationship. It was meant to add depth to the relationship in the backdrop while this absurd storyline, which was meant to be funny, was also going on. But at the end of the day, it was such an unfulfilling resolution and such a boring relationship. And they treat it so poorly that even the most compelling aspect of it is at best mediocre and at worst forgettable, much like Chris Griffin's entire character. So even the most consistent relationship he has in the show is unfulfilling and can never resolve itself because of the nature of the show. He virtually has no relationship with Lois or Brian or Stewie, even though they seem to get along from time to time, and I acknowledge that the episode with the squirrel was very funny. Chris Griffin just remains insignificant in all of the storylines, inconsistent throughout the entirety of the show post season 3, and rather than developing him like they did with other characters, and at the very least developing the relationship that he has with other characters, they leave him as a blank canvas that once had lots of detail on it. They took no risks with him, and that's why he feels so badly. So maybe he isn't the most sophisticated and deep character. Maybe they did waste a lot of his potential. Maybe they do drop the ball. But at the end of the day, it is Family Guy, and there's a lot to criticize about all of their characters. I just wish we had enough information over the course of 20 plus seasons that we could even create a detailed character profile on him, but we really can't. There's not enough information about him. He's inconsistent and forgettable, and for one of the main characters of the show to be described as forgotten is a significant problem, no matter what the nature of the show is, or no matter what show it is. Hey guys, thank you for watching. Please ignore my voice. There's a heat wave in Ireland right now and I am so dehydrated. And I could drink water, but I choose not to. That's a protest. Thank you so much for watching the video. Thank you so much for all the support. On my previous video about Obsession, I am very grateful to have almost 400 subscribers. Thank you very much. I'm also really grateful for all the people that commented on my previous video. I got maybe about like 10 comments that disagreed, and every single one of them was really respectful. Oh wait, yeah, every single one. I was hallucinating like a hate comment there. I really just appreciated how people were just able to be like, no, I disagree with this because of this point and this point and this point. I was actually quite shocked to see how many people think that Bear isn't actually like a really bad guy. They actually see Nikki as the bad guy. I kind of have a bit of a completely different opinion, but I like the way people express their difference of opinion. I thought it was really fun. It's nice to be able to interact with my comments. Like when I see a comment that I haven't, like, that I missed it, because I only get notifications for like single comments. I don't get notifications for people who reply to my reply. So I like actually go in and check. And if I've missed one and it's like 2 months old, I'm actually sitting there cringing because I want to reply, but it's 2 months later and I don't want people to know that I'm not nonchalant. But anyways, just thank you so much if you commented on that video, or if you even watched that video and you're watching to this point. Thank you so much. I've actually, you know what I've been thinking? I've been thinking when I start to earn money off of YouTube, I'm gonna invest in like a horse. You know, like a horse puppet to go alongside my beautiful image here that I put for my long outros. And I'm going to use the puppet because I was watching Muppets Christmas Carol and I was like, this is pretty peak. And I just feel like there's something so like, there's something that I want to embody about a Muppet. Or thank you so much if you come back to this channel and sit through the long outros. But I like to be able to talk to, you know, my audience. Like I like to be able to talk at the end of my video, because making the actual video, making the point that you're making, you know, like you putting the thumbnail and the title, that's one thing, but actually like getting to appreciate the people that come back for your videos is a whole other, like, and I just really appreciate it. So thank you so much for all the support. I'm gonna go now because my voice is really annoying, but thank you so much. Bye.